At Community Living Toronto, we continue to celebrate Inclusive Education Month by advocating for providing quality education to an increasingly diverse student population. We acknowledge and recognize the commitment and effort of teachers, students, and families who contribute to the successful inclusion of students in schools and classrooms throughout Canada. Today, we are honored to hear and learn directly from those who impact the education system as they share their opinions on the benefits, challenges, and vision for inclusive education.
My name is Nora Green, and I'm a retired teacher now. And throughout my entire career, which is like 33 years long, I've worked in special education, both as like a resource teacher, where I'm supporting kids in a regular class, but I also had a time when I taught in a special education class, and then came out and taught a regular class. I've also belonged on SEAC since I found out that my son was diagnosed with autism when he was 4. So I joined SEAC. I'm still a sitting member there. And while I sit on SEAC, I now represent Inclusion Action in Ontario. So inclusive education for me, and I'm not going to use like a big definition from a researcher. For me, it means the kids are going to school in the community in which they live, with their neighbors, with all the families that they're associated with. And while they're at school, there's explicitly planned instruction that benefits all kids. And that, while that sometimes means we all have individual goals, it also means we're part of community. And so there's not this isolation idea that, yeah, you're here, but you're not part of us. There's a sense of belonging for all the students, also knowing that we all have our own learning journeys in that. And so school sort of needs to make space for that community piece, but also how we're going to support each individual student to grow.
Who is Dr. Ash? That's the question you're asking me, right? Well, I'm a parent and father of 2 children. I'm Irish born and have been a professional musician since age 16. Music is a real passion of mine, and I've used it in my teaching and also in fundraising events for the Down Syndrome Association and other charitable organizations. They are enormous, multiple, and I believe infinite. Students with disabilities can teach classmates about different ways of looking at things. They can teach students that the world is made up of different kinds of people, all sorts of differences, and that they can learn from each other. They can provide meaningful learning opportunities about empathy and about seeing what life is like walking in the shoes of another person. I think that's really important for building character for the student who is able-bodied, being invited into the world of a student with an intellectual disability.
My name is Diane Montgomery, and I have a child or a son with autism. I've been an advocate for him all of his life. I'm also an educator of students who have learning differences, and I'm also working on my PhD. I'm a PhD candidate, and my focus is on inclusive education. So the biggest struggle, I think, is a lack of training and resources. One of my previous studies where I was actually exploring teachers who did inclusive classroom really well, what they told me was that they attributed their success to building relationships with students, and also using the different instructional frameworks like Universal Design for Learning and differentiated classrooms. So that was what made them successful. These teachers also had training in inclusive education. So they had the practices. But what they also did was they spent lots and lots of time creating their own resources to get to know their students.
Education, first of all, must be seen as a partnership between multiple constituents: the school board, the Ministry of Education, the administration in school, the trustees, and the parents and the students. Each of them monitor the working of the system from their vantage point, and they respond accordingly. So when we look at these different groups, improvements involve respectful discussion. So we need to talk with each other. Doesn't mean we need to agree all the time, but we need to find a consensus because the focus should always be on what's best for the student. And remember, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar.